And we are back on the Ribbon Cut podcast. I'm Susan Donkers from Strata Platforms. And this podcast is to talk about the people behind site selection. So we talk about this on every episode. It is as much as 5 to 6 years in advance from when a company first says, I think we want to add capacity. Maybe we should build a new building. It can be several years before that building starts coming out of the ground and you actually start operating. So this podcast called The Ribbon Cut is to introduce the audience to the tips and tricks and trends, the programs, the incentives, and most importantly, the people behind site selection. So I'm so honored this morning to have Adam Hess of CSX, and we're going to talk about not only CSX as a transportation company, but about CSX as an industrial development company. So welcome this morning, Adam. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Pleasure to be here.
So let's just dive right in. We often have a global audience. They come to location1.com to look for properties. There's over 8,400 people every month that are coming to that website to look for economic development properties across Canada, USA, and Mexico. So for that global audience who may not be familiar with CSX, can you give us the big picture introduction of who is CSX and what is your role?
Yeah, sure. So CSX is one of 6 Class 1 railroads in North America. CSX operates about a 22,000 rail mile network, primarily focused on the eastern half of the United States, with a small presence in Quebec and Ontario. At any given time, we've got hundreds of trains moving throughout that entire network, vast different types of trains within that. There's the intermodal network, there's merchandise traffic, and there's in-unit trains. So we have we're moving all different commodities. We move everything from lumber, concrete, and steel to support the construction industry. We also move food and grains for the food that we eat, chemical and plastics for the packaging and things that we use every day. There's a fun fact, about 75% of all finished vehicles move by rail. So that's a major part of our network also. And then we have the intermodal network that runs finished product in containers from within our terminal to terminal network. My job at CSX as Director of Industrial Development is to help the local economic development organizations develop sites that can attract new industry. And I work attracting that new industry to the right communities and along our right of way and the right fit for within our system.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up on the intermodal network. Some people who are not, if you haven't utilized rail as a logistics solution before, some people aren't familiar with what the word intermodal means. Can you help people visualize that in real life?
Sure. Yeah. I think there's some misgivings of it sometimes because intermodal is really the true definition is changing modes of transportation, right? But in the rail industry, its primary focus is the movement of containers, whether it be international containers or domestic containers. I think it's really the newest product that the rail industry has offered, and it's growing. There's trucking companies that have seen the advantages of rail and partnering with the industry, and we're seeing a continued interest in this new product. So it's the standard containers that typically are on double stacked on trains, and they run on a specific kind of terminal to terminal network. So I make the statement of it's the most inflexible, flexible product that the railroad has.
Right.
Well, the inflexibility is it goes from terminal to terminal.
Right.
Yeah. But the most flexible piece is after that terminal, the truck can take it anywhere. So it really does leverage both the best worlds. We can move a lot of something efficiently, and the trucks can take over and deliver that last mile.
So my 7-year-old nephew has a train set in the basement of their house, and I told him that an intermodal yard is basically a container parking lot. And so we built a little container parking lot in the middle of the train track and put a semi-truck that's going from the train to the container parking lot to help get it to its end point. I hope I did that correctly.
You nailed it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good job.
Okay. So we're on track, literally. So what's new or news at CSX? What developments should foreign companies or domestic ones know or have on their radar? What's new with the railroad?
Yeah. So what's news for CSX? We've had some challenges over the last year. One was planned and one was unplanned. So the planned challenge was the Howard Street Tunnel. It's in Maryland, and to expand on the intermodal conversation, the Howard Street Tunnel was only capable of handling a single stacked container. So we made the decision to shut down the tunnel, fix it for double stacked movement, which is going to make our outward and inward flow into the state of Maryland much more efficient. And so we're anticipating that the tunnel will be complete towards the end of the year.
And I'm expecting then that the Maryland economic development organizations are tracking that quite closely.
Yes. Yeah, they are. And anything along that corridor, right, it can work its way all the way up into Ohio and Indiana and Chicago also.
So we're talking about the inflexibility of the rail going terminal to terminal, and then the intermodal making it supremely flexible to now connect that container to any manufacturing plants and use loading dock or, coming into their facility. So expand on that a little bit. What does a company gain by choosing a rail-served site over a non-rail-served site? And I know that
Sure.
I know that this is a question where, of course, I'm asking somebody who is working for a rail company about why choose a rail-served site. But I think that you would also be the perfect person to tell us why not to select one.
Yeah. So, being two categories, right? With the intermodal side, you don't need a rail served site. You can go anywhere because of the flexibility of that last mile. So there's a little bit of defense for some of our sites where if you don't need rail, we kind of encourage to go somewhere else because that's a unique feature that we try our best to preserve for people that need it the most. Mm-hmm. And so with the companies that need the rail service, I think that the one most important thing is that it delivers access. It delivers access to the North American rail network. So, while we're CSX, that can get a rail car anywhere in North America. So it opens up quite a large market for you. And then obviously they're analyzing supply chains and, truck being the major competitor to rail, the railroad has a big advantage because it's the more efficient mode of transportation, where we have the ability to move a ton of freight 500 miles on a gallon of fuel. And that's much more efficient than the trucking industry can offer. And then the access, right? We can access every port in East and West Coast, Gulf Coast of Texas. And then whatever their specific feedstock is, if it's rail served, then we can deliver an efficient supply chain to that location.
And what would be an example of an industry sector where you might run defense and say, look, we could put you on our rail network, but there might be a better site 5 miles away. So can you give us a couple of examples of where it just wouldn't be a great fit?
Well, maybe not a great fit, might be specific perishable foods that aren't a strong market for the rail network. There might be a specific manufacturing where the widget that they make, they're not making enough of it,
a lower volume,
to support, the bulk strength of receiving rail.
And who is a bullseye? Just a fantastic fit.
Anybody that needs a lot of a certain commodity is probably the best way to put that. But if you think about the steel network, right, that a lot of the scrap, so that inbound feedstock typically moves by rail. Then once that steel's gone through whatever process, whether it's rebar or structural steel, that finished product can move outbound by rail. That's a great target. The plastics industry is another where the resins and pellets are made in Houston and Pennsylvania, and they view the rail car as storage. So that really aligns with our strength, and we have the ability to store those cars in certain areas, storage and transit, and then we can deliver kind of on time, on demand as customers need those specific resins and pellets for their production process.
That's really interesting. It's making me, that storage and transit's making me think about when people are, so like the airline industry, when they're purchasing fuel, they often need to store that fuel. And so then they can time the market, their purchase price, so that they can optimize their operating budget. So it's making me think about, in addition to just transportation, CSX might be offering supply chain options for companies. So routing products different directions, controlling fuel prices. Can you talk a little bit about some examples you've seen where companies really need help controlling their logistics flow as pricing changes dramatically?
Yeah, I think, as far as the supply chain side of it, the leverage in rail will always be the bulk, right? The ability to move a lot of a commodity into a single facility. Typically, I think the standard statement is 3 to 4 trucks per rail car. So obviously that efficiency, the simplicity of that, not having to manage 3 to 4 trucks per rail car, right? We can deliver, hypothetically say, 10 rail cars at a time to a facility. Well, we've just taken off 30 to 40 trucks off the road, 30 to 40 drivers that you have to manage. So there's a simplicity side to that.
And when you're thinking about the simplicity side, and we're thinking about specific industries, that makes me think about, well, how can you tailor solutions then, right? So if we're talking about somebody that needs bulk, so let's maybe use the automotive industry as a great example. In addition to being able to bring the bulk materials in and then ship the cars out, what additional kind of value add services does CSX tailor to specific sectors?
Yeah, so the team that I'm on is the industrial development team. Inside, adjacent, kind of a counterpart of mine, we have the site design team. The site design team plays a critical role in that, where all different commodities have different unloading and loading requirements. And while we're familiar with those on a regular basis, what the nice thing that we have is we can bring my site design counterpart to the table. We can have a quick and efficient conversation with that new industry, understand any nuances or importances that they have in their planning of this new facility that they're talking about, and then quickly turn around a preliminary design that One, creates an efficient and cost-effective design based on the business that they're talking about doing. Two, it'll match up with the operating plan so that we're coming to the table with a design that creates a win-win scenario between the customer and the railroad. And so that's a quick and easy step. That design then can get handed into kind of the overall planning of the project, right? These projects that we're working on are very complex, and a rail is just a small piece of it. So if we can add that in a fast and efficient manner, and as they go through kind of the engineering process of that project, we'll try and make that rail as simple as possible when they're planning where to go and how to go about building it.
So for that foreign direct investor, that audience that's coming over to the United States and potentially building their facility for the first time, what I'm hearing you say is, don't worry, we're going to help you, right? So if a company has not done this before, they don't necessarily need to become the experts at it or ask their design or construction teams to become the experts at it. They just need to know, how do they want to manufacture their product at their facility, and let your team help provide that service to them of helping to design the loading and unloading and get that, the last bit of the requirements sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the experts on what they're making. And I feel like it's our role to support that expertise. So if we can come to the table and understand a little bit about exactly what they're trying to accomplish, we can then tweak or, customize the track design appropriately so that we can make that step as easy as possible for them going through this process.
What if someone's choosing an existing facility that already has the rail spur and the track in place? Would that site design still be possible to make modifications to the existing footprint, or would you recommend the company choose a different location? Or I'm assuming the answer is it depends. But I'm just curious about the difference between if you choose a greenfield site versus a site that already has an existing plant that is available to be taken. Does the site design team work with both?
Yeah, so they do work with both. With existing rail, there's obvious limitations, right? That track or that building and track were designed for something. If they're trying to change that use, there's things we can do and there's things that we can't do. And in that particular step, I just find it to be very straightforward and honest of, here's what we can do, here's what we can do well. If that works, great. And then understand their feedback and the next step of, maybe we can make an adjustment here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then, we can start to come up with a plan that, maybe meets in the middle, or, it's important to make sure that it's a win-win, that, we don't overpromise and underdeliver at that step, especially for the foreign direct investment companies that you're talking about, because there has to be a high level of trust that we're recommending the right thing for them regardless.
So if I move that back to the site selection process and to any company that might be utilizing our resource at location1.com to search for properties, go ahead and put any property you're interested in into your favorites. Go ahead and consider sites and buildings, and then let either your site selection consulting partner or the railroad give you feedback before you just eliminate something for not meeting your requirements exactly. Would that be
Absolutely.
What you would recommend?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it's, the rail piece is an important piece to understand, and we should be able to provide fast and efficient feedback if we're given the proper data up front. If we understand the commodity, if we understand how much of that commodity, if we understand where it's going and or coming from, right? We should be able to turn around and give the proper guidance of this is how this site can perform for you.
Well, that's fantastic news to anyone who's wanting to use rail, that there's a team of experts here that's ready to support and provide guidance. So what about the years before a company has even dreamed that they might want to locate on rail? Tell us about the CSX Select Site program and how you're investing in real estate proactively to prepare for the future, to prepare for this future company that doesn't even know that they want to locate in the United States yet.
Yeah, so back in 2012, CSX made the decision to put the Select Site program together. I think that's when certification of sites were just gathering some momentum. Mm-hmm. There was an opportunity in the market for a railroad to jump in. We were the first railroad to do it. We saw another opportunity that others were going after these large, grand sites for the legacy type projects, and we saw a gap and made the decision to go with a little bit smaller, the bread and butter, the where we see more activity in smaller sites. So we focused on 100+ acreage sites. We focused on providing a thorough analysis of real estate due diligence, and then organizing it in a professional way and being able to fast and efficiently present it to the market. So that was a great timing for us.
Well, and
it took a few years to get
13 years.
30, yeah. It took a few years to get the brand established, but to date, we've created about $17.5 billion of capital investment, about 14,000 full-time jobs. And so it's been a great program. Probably the most proud fact I have of the program to date is that every development that's happened on a Select Site has performed as we've said it would.
Everyone.
And so that's a testament to the work that we've put into it.
Well, and so tell us about that journey. I mean, it's from 2012 to 2025. Have you worked with, how many sites have you invested in? Have you worked with any partners to bring these sites to fruition? Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey?
Yeah, in 2023, that's when we started our conversation with Strata of we saw a different opportunity in the market where a lot of the local economic development organizations that we work with weren't receiving the feedback, didn't understand where they needed to be in the market. And then that's where our conversation started with the Site Shepherd and Lasso tools. And we saw a way to deliver on that need to our most strategic partners. And so a lot of those partners had the smaller sites that were the kind of bread and butter projects that we like the most. And the platform allowed us to give direct feedback. So the more robust tool that we built, the better the feedback was for the overall community. And so that's when we made the decision to make the gold, silver, and bronze levels in the program. And I think to date, we're pushing around 30 new sites that have gold, silver, and bronze designations. There's many more sites that are in the program. And then through feedback, and I think this is the most important part, is when you get that bronze designation, you don't have to be a bronze forever. The feedback we give back to you is here, if you work on this and this and this, you can work your way up to being a gold. If you didn't get a designation at all and you work on, these features, we can get you into bronze, silver, or gold. So it's a very organic program that will deliver a constant new pipeline of sites as they mature. And we've been in this business for a long time, and we know that these investments take time. They take a lot of money, and it's a gradual process that just can't happen instantly. So this program rewards that long-term vision that communities have.
So, Adam, when you're talking about that feedback, I'm also going back to 2012 through a different lens of one of the things I was doing at that time was a customer experience map of what would it feel like to be an economic development organization that throws my site in the ring, throws my community and site information back to a site selection consultant by answering an RFI. And I keep responding and responding and responding and hosting field visits, hosting phone calls, but not getting selected and not knowing why. And that lack of feedback was something that I saw when we actually mapped out how many economic development organizations were interacting with that big funnel of projects, but just a few sites selected every year. So everyone else, how can they improve if they don't know why they weren't selected? So I'm hearing you say the same thing. You saw that same gap of that lack of feedback. So how has CSX been communicating that feedback back to your community partners?
Yeah, so through the gold, silver, and bronze, we've developed a scorecard that lets the communities know where they stand and why they stand there. The way that I like it the best is it presents facts. There's no theory. There's no, maybes. It's, look, here is the competitive set. Here's who you are competing against in the market. And here's your shortcomings. And it points directly to it. And to me, that's the best type of feedback any economic development organization can have, so that they understand, they go through a tremendous amount of work submitting all these RFIs again and again and again to win such a small percentage of projects. Mm-hmm. So anything that we can provide them to better the site, better position the site, open up marketing opportunities, I think that's our responsibility and our partnership with them.
So let's talk about an example. Project Skyfall. That's coming to my mind in terms of it being a major development that was supported through the Select Site team, and it's slated to break ground. It's actually received a project opportunity. So can you walk us through that case? And I think there were some challenges there that you needed to overcome.
Yeah, so Project Skyfall ended up going to the South Alabama megasite in Baldwin County, Alabama. The site has a long history, 30 plus site visits with no wins. And we brought the Select Site program to the table, went through the long and arduous process. They got the platinum designation. And then at the same time, the growing Alabama tax credit was put into place, which allowed companies to invest in assets like this and receive a tax credit back. So with that tax credit, we invested in environmental due diligence to better prepare it for the Select Site program, cleared the trees, set the pad, set the rail bed for the spur to the site. So all those things then showed the market that this was progress in
de-risking.
In this site. De-risking, yeah. and because of the platinum designation, it's proven itself again that these sites can perform. So Project Skyfall chose the South Alabama mega site, and to date, there's a shovel going in the ground very soon, and everything sounds like it's going very smoothly to date.
So it's an example of there's a tremendous amount because of this due diligence that's happening and the investments that are taking place. The company doesn't have to go through that process. The manufacturer doesn't have to go through that process from a capital investment standpoint, from urging a policy improvement, and they also don't have to impact their schedule, right? The site's just that much more ready with that much more support by the time they show up.
Absolutely. The speed of development is so critical. And so if a program like ours can deliver all of those due diligence materials in a professional and organized manner, put together by a qualified site selection firm, there's a de-risking mentality with that, right? In projects that I've worked, here's all the material. You can fact check me all you want. You can do all of it again, but here it is. Here's what we stand behind. And the speed of development is so important these days because these manufacturing facilities have to be built so fast. They have to be up and running on such tight timelines. Doing all of that pre-work allows a large chunk of time to be cut out of the development timeline. So I continue to see the speed of development as an important criteria when these sites are developed.
So I feel like it would be safe to assume that you're going to continue the Select Site program.
Yeah, of course. It's been a great success for us. Yeah, it's.
I'm curious curious the plans to grow. I mean, how many properties per year, or tell us a little bit more about the growth plans or the process flow for how you're going to continue to operate the program.
So I think that on the platinum side, I think the market talks to us appropriately. That's a long and arduous process. The real estate due diligence.
So when you say the market, you mean the economic development organizations that are interested, they raise their hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so I think those will come as the market dictates. Where those opportunities are, they'll just be presented. On the gold, silver, and bronze level, I see us continuing kind of an annual rollout of new sites and continuing to kind of bolster the gold, silver, and bronze levels, hopefully with sites that are already in the database that have already participated. There's nothing would make me prouder than to watch a site that had a very low score, in round one, all of a sudden 5 years from now be a gold. That to me, that's showing the engagement that we've looked for, and hopefully the progress that we're all looking for to make these sites as developable as possible.
I think that's what we would love to see too as the technology provider, because we're providing through our software transparency into a process that was more subjective and black box. So by putting those facts out there of here's how to improve, if we saw that communities were implementing those to continuously improve their property and community, that would feel extremely fulfilling to see that progress, because that's progress toward attracting investment.
Yep. Yeah, these take time. These are large projects. They change communities, and so it's a long-term vision.
So, Adam, you've been at this for a long term. And so to wrap us up, I'm curious, on a personal level, why are you working in this industry? With your expertise and background, you could apply your talents to any number of industries. So why do you come to work every day? What's your why?
Yeah. So, my why of coming to CSX was the Select Site program. I was working in railroad real estate prior to that and understood the development side. When I saw that program, it was something that really attracted me to a company that was doing the right thing, and it was ahead of its time. And so that started that kind of desire for me to come here at CSX. And then when I met the team that I was going to work with, that's when I knew it was a perfect fit, because I learn from my team every day, and I hope that they learn from me. We're a diverse group of people. We're a very tight-knit group of people, and we operate fast and efficiently at times to where we have to share information and make the group, through making the group better. And to me, that was the perfect work environment and exactly what I was looking for. So I'm very lucky and very blessed to have this role, and look forward to being here for a long time.
Well, my takeaway is this. If you're a company that's considering the United States and considering rail, it's worth meeting the industrial development team at CSX and see how they can help advise you on making any property that you might be considering an optimal fit for your production.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd encourage any conversation. We're here to help. We're here to guide in the right direction. So, any conversation that we can be beneficial in, I'd welcome it, and feel free to reach out and contact me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Ribbon Cut, and how fantastic that over the time that you've been at CSX, you've been a part of many ribbon cutting ceremonies. And we appreciate working with you and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Thank you very much, Susan. This was an absolute pleasure.